Step into the chilling world of courtroom dramas, where dangerous killers come face to face with the ultimate consequence, a death sentence. Brace yourself for the intense emotions, shocking revelations, and unexpected reactions that unfold as these individuals grapple with the reality of their actions. Witness the gripping courtroom battles that determine their fate, and explore the depths of human nature in these high-stakes cases. Meet Mari Lloyd, whose life took a dark turn when he found himself in court for a crime that shook a community. It all started with a tragic encounter at a Walmart in Orlando, Florida. Mari was already on the run after a heartbreaking incident involving his former girlfriend. But fate had more in store when he crossed paths with Lieutenant Deborah Clayton, a dedicated officer just doing her job. Surveillance footage captured their chance encounter, leading to a tragic turn of events. In a split second, Mari's actions took a life, and the consequences were severe. A SWAT team surrounded his home, marking the beginning of a tumultuous journey through the legal system. As Mari faced the judge, emotions ran high. His outbursts and threats painted a picture of desperation and confusion. Yet amidst the chaos, his words hinted at a sense of betrayal and injustice. He claimed he never wanted any of it, that he had always looked out for others. In his mind, it was self-defense, a reaction to the world closing in on him. The jury's decision to recommend the death penalty only fueled Mari's anguish. His cries of innocence echoed through the courtroom, but the verdict was final. The realization that he would spend the rest of his days on death row hit hard, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and unresolved pain. In contrast, there's the case of Dexter Johnson, a young man whose life took a dark turn at the age of 19. His involvement in a horrific crime shocked a community and led to a similar fate on death row. The courtroom scene was tense as the judge delivered the verdict, but it was Dexter's violent outburst that left everyone stunned. His anger and despair were palpable, a stark reminder of the human cost of crime and punishment, whose involvement in a carjacking turned deadly ended in a sentence of death. The courtroom was filled with tears as the judge delivered the verdict, but it was Darnell's emotional outburst that stole the show. His uncontrollable rage laid bare the pain and desperation of a young man facing the consequences of his actions. The death penalty, a controversial topic that delves into the deepest corners of justice and morality. But what happens when the one facing it actually asks for it? Enter Stephen Lorenzo, a figure embroiled in the shadows of multiple homicides in Tampa Bay, Florida. His story unravels a dark narrative of collaboration in crime with his accomplice, Scott Schweer, resulting in the brutal murders of Jason Gilhouse and Michael Woltz nearly 2 decades ago. The details of Lorenzo's crimes are chilling, involving luring his victims to his home under the guise of hospitality, only to subject them to unimaginable horrors. As the courtroom proceedings unfold, emotions run high as Lorenzo is confronted by the grieving mother of his victims. Her anguish and rage are palpable as she demands justice for her loved ones, expressing her visceral disgust at the sight of Lorenzo. But Lorenzo remains stoic, showing no remorse for his actions. Instead, he attempts to rationalize his crimes, weaving a narrative of manipulation and control. His lack of empathy only serves to further enrage Judge Christopher Sabella, who struggles to comprehend the depths of Lorenzo's depravity. As the sentencing approaches, Lorenzo shocks everyone present with an unexpected request: the death penalty. His reasoning is as unsettling as it is perplexing, as he expresses a desire for the comfort of death over the uncertainty of life behind bars. But Judge Sabella remains unmoved, refusing to grant Lorenzo's morbid request, and instead delivering the ultimate punishment: death. In contrast, there's the harrowing tale of Tyrone Johnson, whose crimes strike even closer to home. Facing charges for the murder of his girlfriend, Stephanie Willis, and her young son, Ricky, Johnson's descent into violence is a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk within the confines of domesticity. The details of Johnson's crimes are heart-wrenching, born out of a heated argument that spiraled out of control. As he recounts the events leading up to the murders, his anguish is palpable, underscoring the tragic consequences of unchecked rage and resentment. But amidst the sorrow and despair, there's a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's still a chance for redemption. As Johnson faces the consequences of his actions, there's a collective plea for healing and closure, a longing for justice tempered with mercy. Bloodstains, bullet holes in the wall, evidence of a gruesome double murder, a chilling tale that unfolded during Johnson's sentencing hearing. As Johnson stood before the court, he pleaded for mercy, proclaiming his innocence with tears in his eyes. He expressed remorse and sorrow, insisting that he was not the vicious man portrayed by the state. However, the courtroom was also filled with the voices of the victims' families, their grief echoing through the halls of justice. They spoke of their pain, their loss, and the void left behind by their loved ones. In another courtroom, a different kind of darkness unfolded. Fraser Glenn Cross, a self-professed white supremacist and former Klansman, faced charges for the murder of 3 people in a shooting spree at Jewish centers in Kansas City. Cross, unrepentant and defiant, represented himself during the trial, spewing hatred and obscenities at every turn. His trial was marked by drama and chaos, with Cross's interruptions and lack of remorse causing frequent disruptions. Despite his vile rhetoric, Cross dared the jury to sentence him to death, believing his actions were righteous and justified. When the verdict was delivered, death, the courtroom erupted into chaos once again. Cross, being wheeled out, proclaimed that his spirit would rise from the grave, convinced of his own righteousness until the very end. Similarly, Michael Brady, serving a lengthy prison sentence for the shooting of a North Carolina highway patrolman, was involved in a deadly escape attempt that claimed the lives of 4 prison workers. Surveillance footage captured the chilling moments leading up to the escape, as Brady and his accomplices armed themselves with makeshift weapons. The footage painted a grim picture of violence and desperation, culminating in a failed attempt to breach the prison's defenses. Despite their brutal actions, Brady and his cohorts were swiftly apprehended, their escape foiled by the quick response of armed guards. Brady was found with cuts from the barbed wire, tears streaming down his face. He opened up about his frustration with the justice system during his trial, while prosecutors labeled him as the mastermind behind the escape attempt. Despite the accusations, Brady remained composed. Even as they detailed the violence he orchestrated, he took the stand, vowing to speak the truth regardless of the consequences, showing a stoic demeanor even when faced with the death penalty. On the other hand, Eileen Warros had a troubled past, marked by addiction and a criminal history. Pregnant and desperate, she turned to selling her body for money, eventually leading to a series of gruesome murders. Despite initially claiming self-defense, her argument fell apart under scrutiny, and she confessed to her crimes. At her sentencing, she received 3 death sentences, showing no remorse and even hurling insults at the court.
I know I was raped, and you aren't nothing but a bunch of scum.
Therefore, these proceedings are now
Putting
concluded.
somebody who was raped to death.
But how does this compare to the betrayal of childhood friendship, seen in the case of Timothy Mosley and Austin Myers? Convicted of murdering their best friend, the 2 young men faced the consequences of their actions, a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and loyalty. Back in 2013, Mosley convinced Mears to join him in breaking into their old childhood friend Justin's house. Mosley claimed they were just going to swipe some cash from Justin's dad's safe, which supposedly was left open. But what started as a simple robbery quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Feeling trapped and unsure how to back out, Mears resorted to violence, stabbing Justin repeatedly while he pleaded for his life. During the trial, Mosley testified against Mears in exchange for a plea deal, admitting that they also strangled Justin to make it look like an accident. Mosley was remorseful and pleaded guilty, receiving a life sentence. When it was Mears's turn to speak, he apologized to Justin's parents and begged the jury to spare his life, acknowledging the pain his actions caused. Despite his plea for a chance at redemption, Mears was sentenced to death, becoming the youngest person in Ohio to receive such a verdict. His expression remained blank as the sentence was handed down. In contrast, Mart Abram faced his crimes head-on. He had worked at Walmart for 2 decades before being suspended for brandishing a knife at a co-worker. Enraged, Abram returned to work armed with multiple weapons, opening fire and killing 2 managers. He then set a fire and attempted to flee, shooting an officer in the process. During his trial, Abram watched video footage of the murders and admitted to his actions. However, he later claimed not to remember anything from that day. Despite his attempts to backtrack, Abram was swiftly convicted, and if you enjoy our content and would like to stay updated, we'd be thrilled if you could hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to us. Thanks for your support.